Hi there, folks. Welcome to another episode of Michael in the Backyard. We are back underneath the hood of the GMC Terrain 2015 year. Well, I've done some research, and what's interesting is when you put out some videos and you do some research on a few videos on the 2.4 liter that's in this particular vehicle, all of a sudden you start finding some scary stuff. And this one here is probably the scariest in my book of everything I've done so far. I did the timing. The VVT solenoids, those are fine. They're good now. They're running good. I got one big problem. I've got let's just show you what it is. What this is a result of is a poor PCV. PVC is the polyvinyl chloride. That's a pipe. This is PCV. Valve not working properly in these 2.4 liters. This is a very common issue. And something that if you see this buildup in here, you need to address it because something very catastrophic can happen going down the highway and you won't even know it's happening. And what is that, you might ask? Well, if you get too much crankcase pressure, what these do is blow out the rear main seal, which is the seal. Now, when they say rear main, it used to be the engine's face front to back, and they'd have the rear between the engine and the transmission. They still call it a rear main seal, even in these transverse engines, because the rear main is tied to the transmission. And this thing will literally pump out all your oil in a very short amount of time. I watched a video on one that was blown out. And what happens is this crankcase pressure will get too great and build up too much, and it'll go pop, and that seal will pop out, and then you're just running oil out on the ground, and all of a sudden you'll see your oil light come on, and that's too late. I mean, I wouldn't say it's too late, but boy, you better shut her down quick because now she's been running without oil coming up through the pump. Zero pressure. Zero pressure on your oil means catastrophic failure in your engine, and you don't want to get to that point. So I'm going to show, I've watched a lot of videos. I've seen a lot of things going on, and you know me, I'll do my research as best I can, and then I'm going to come up with the best solution I can. Now, in the paperwork that I got with this car, when they did do the check, they did have one thing right. I don't want to completely, bash them. The check engine light was on, sure. Timing issue, P0010. Front wheel drive shaft seal is damp. Get that. I haven't looked at that very close, but I didn't see anything terribly, horribly wrong there yet. But timing change is where they made a flaw. But the intake manifold cleaning, removal and cleaning. So that removal and cleaning is what they're saying you have to do with all these. This is a common problem. So this thing ought to have a zipper on top as many times as I've been in and out of this thing. But we're going to pull these covers back off, and I'm going to show you a fix that I thought was pretty good because there's a little tiny orifice. There's a little tiny orifice in the intake manifold, and I'll show you a picture of that on the screen. Here, maybe the whole screen while I'm talking. And that little hole needs to be unplugged. That will relieve the pressure. That's supposed to relieve the pressure that's built up inside the intake, or inside the engine pressure itself. And we're going to do two things in this video to relieve the pressure. The first one I'm going to show you is going to be a little unorthodox. So this isn't telling you guys to do this. This is what I'm doing because when I see a good idea, I jump all over it. And I'll leave the person's name. There's a YouTube channel that I watched and got this idea from. And I'm not saying I'm improving on it much, but I am definitely going to do what he did because it makes a whole lot of sense. Because what happens is on that intake, that little orifice will get plugged up over time. And then once it gets plugged up, pressure builds, things go pop. There's things that can freeze because there's a lot of moisture. Let me show you another part here. Let's get down. Let's pull this back off again. Like I said, you can see a lot of white stuff right there. And what happens is a lot of moisture. There's moisture in that cap. You can see the droplets down in there. And there again, I used to have that kind of thing on the dipstick on my wife's Subaru. And as you can see it, there's moisture building up in the engine. And that's because of the pressure. It can't get it, you know, you can't get it burned off and evacuated, so to speak. Over here on this tube on the side, if you pull this off, and I remember when I first got this thing about, let's call it 200 miles ago, there was a lot of moisture here and water ran out of this. That's your second sign. So there's plenty of warning. So go out and check on your GMC Terrain. There's a Chevy Equinox. There's anything that has this 2.4 liter, roughly from 2010 to 2020, could have this issue. So there again, don't do what I do. Don't follow what I do. I'm an idiot, but I'm learning. Okay, I'm not actually an idiot, but I can't tell you to do this. I would advise you don't do it. But if you don't do it, have the professionals do it. Tell them what you got going on. Tell them, hey, I've noticed this and I've noticed this, and this is a problem. And I don't want to lose my rear main seal, which, from what I understand, you got to pull the transmission out. It's about a 10-hour job. And if it's a 10-hour job at, say, let's call it $125 to $150 an hour shop rate, that's a $1,200 to $1,500 job, maybe more. Timing chain, in this thing they were quoting it at $3,000 for a timing chain. So anything you can do to keep it out of the shop, do it. And especially if, the whole other thing is be educated on this stuff so you don't get taken advantage of. Now I'm going to get right back in here and I'm going to show you how we're going to get to what we're getting to, and then I'm going to show you the fix. Now, one thing I noticed on this is that when I took this off while it was running, there was a lot of pressure coming up out of here. I started up my Impala this morning because I was just checking the oil before we took it out because it was freaking 18 below zero, actually 14 below zero when we left. And I wanted to make sure everything was kosher. But I was also checking this pressure through the oil fill cap just to see how much pressure was coming out of there. And there was zero. I'm going to fire this up for a short amount of time here just to show you what I'm seeing. You guys can see that? There's a lot of movement going on there. My goal I'd love to have something a little fluffier than this, but we're going to see if we can improve on that. We definitely know something's not right just because of all the moisture we got down in here. Let me shut this off so I don't asphyxiate myself. Like I said, on my 3.5 liter V6, I put my hand over this thing and I feel nothing. So, because everything's working as it should. So let's go ahead and get our 5/16 nut driver. Here we go, we'll pull this off. You guys have seen me do this a couple times already. Don't be afraid to skip ahead to where I got this all off. Just hit that little arrow button on your remote. But for those of you that are checking in just to see this particular, what's going on with this, stay in here. So there's one down here in the intake manifold, a pipe clamp, and I back this pipe clamp off. And then we should be able to lift this right off of here, like that. And then there's two grommets back here. We got to pull this toward us like that. And then we should be able to wiggle this right off. And here's that other clamp I was telling you about. It's right there. Set this stuff aside. Next piece we want to remove is to make sure we don't break this off. We'll go ahead and pull this up. One in the corner back here, pop it up. One in the front corner, pop it up. And you can slip this out of here like that. So far, so good, right? We'll put this back on to keep any, let's keep that moisture in there. I'm just kidding you on that. All right. Now we're going to pull some of these wiring harnesses out of our way, because that's what they are, is in our way. Little red clip, pop it back. Somebody else said they had trouble with this one being a little stubborn. I don't know if that little clip's under here being a little stubborn or... Yeah, so I got the screwdriver underneath there. Let me get you guys in here tight. So on this plug right here, let's get you so you can see it here. I went underneath this little piece right here, down low, and I was able to lift up on it. Once I lifted up on it, she popped right free. There we go. We'll just move this down below out of our way for a minute. And then what else do we need to get out of our way? I'm going to go ahead and put a rubber glove over this intake. That'll keep some of the stuff out of it here. So I think I'm going to take this intake throttle body off because I want to clean it. But I see some other garbage down in here. Now this little clip here, I'll get you in tight on this one here. We're going to take this guy here and push it in. You're going to push it in pretty well, and then you can pop this off. We can kind of move that up out of our way a little bit. Be careful not to overdo anything. Now the stuff we're trying to get at is behind this little cover right here. I'm going to do something I probably shouldn't. I'm going to cut this right here. We'll just fold that back out of our way. Now my understanding is there's that little hole that I showed you earlier in the gasket. Here's your center bolt. Right here's your middle two cylinders. Come straight ahead down here, and there's a bolt here. And right here through this is where I want to drill a hole. And that's going to allow me to get a wire in there and a hose in there to kind of do a little cleaning out without removing this whole intake manifold. Worst case scenario, I have to buy a new intake manifold. And then I'll attack that job. What I've created here, this is just your normal 5/16 18 flange nut. And then I've got a 5/16 18 by 1/2 inch bolt. Whoops. That'll screw right into here, like that. Now what I've done, see how that sticks out the bottom? What I've done is shorten one up. So when I squeeze this all the way down, it doesn't stick out the bottom. And on top of that, hope you can see that, I've got a little O-ring that just fits on there. And what that's going to do for me is that's going to act like a plug. So when I put this together, I can snug that up and plug this hole up I'm getting ready to put in this thing. Now the trick's going to be, I want to get this hole in here high enough that I can get this bolt in and out. Because right now laying at this angle, it won't work for me. So I want to be able to tilt this thing up a little bit. And I'm going to do that by using a drill bit to hold it in place is my goal. But I want to clean that up first. Now I've just got some acetone on a Q-tip. I'm going to go down here and scrub this up a little bit. I want to get this area nice and clean. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. The acetone will leave a non-oil residue for me, which is cool. I want to clean all around here because next thing we're going to be doing is doing a little bit of JB welding. Now some of you might be cringing, but I think we're going to be doing ourselves a lot of good here. Next thing I'm going to do is take my screwdriver here, and I'm using it like sandpaper. I'm going to scratch this all up. I'm going to give this a really gnarly looking surface, because I want this to hold my JB Weld. And a sharp edge screwdriver can get in there and do a lot of good scratching. Give a lot of good bite. Now, keep in mind, there's no pressure here to speak of, other than your intake. You know, it's gonna be more vacuum related than it is pressure related here. And once you think you've got it scratched up pretty good, scratch it up a little more. Now, a lot of you are probably gonna roast me in the comments for doing this, but I think it's gonna work. I think we got it roughed up pretty good. A little more acetone cleaning going on here. Looks pretty clean. Q-tip's coming out really nice. We'll let that sit and evaporate while we continue on with the rest of this hocus pocus. I'm getting ready to commit here. Now I'm going to come up at a little bit of an angle. I'm not going to drill straight perpendicular. I want to come at a little bit of an angle, but not by much. Like I said, I want to give myself enough room to get that nut and stuff to work for me. I basically want to be in the center of that bolt area. So I'm going to start a little bit perpendicular here. There, I got it started. Now I want to come up at an angle like this. There, we're through. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit bigger drill. Now you gotta be careful, because this plastic wants to be really grabby. You don't want to crack this thing. Now I'm tilting her up a little bit. See how that grabs? Now my understanding is I should be able to go in here and feel a hole. Alrighty, we got a little bit of a trick going on here. I'm going to try to show you guys a little bit better picture than I was seeing before myself. If I can get everything to lay out here just so. So as you can see here, right here's the hole. I drilled a 1/4 inch hole in there. I did it at an angle that's more vertical, you know, so I could get in there. But I want to be able to take my borescope here, camera with my borescope here, and up here is what you're going to see when I look through this hole and get it just right. You see that hole right there? It's in the center of the screen. That's the hole that we need to make sure we poke through. So I'm going to set you back here a little bit. But I've got this little piece of welding wire, 035 welding wire, and I can get it right in here, sneak it by the light. Let's see if I can get everything lined up here. I really don't know how well this is going to come out for you guys to be able to see. And everything's kind of trying to get in here and feel and see. Everything's kind of backwards from the camera that I'm looking at here. See if I can get this in the center of the screen a little better. So close. Right there. So that pokes in there quite a ways. Just want to make sure that hole is good and clear. And it looks like it is clear. We can poke all the way through, which is all we want. Now we're going to take our 2-part JB Weld, and we're going to JB Weld this nut right down on there. And I want to cheat a little bit, because I'm going to use this screwdriver here, this drill here, to hold this up at an angle. So it allows me room to get my nut in there. So this will be a little tricky, but we'll see if we can get her done. Our goal is not to get any in that hole, but I want to build it up enough around the base here so I can put this on at an angle, and it's going to seal up all the way around it, but not push any into the hole. not impossible, just could be a little difficult. And gravity will work with you in some cases and against you in others. And I've got it all around the hole, but not in the hole. Hooray. Now I'm going to stick my drill bit right down in here, carefully. Now let the nut slip down. And then I can kind of push it down a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Looks like that's going to do exactly what I want it to do. See if I can get this little drill bit in here. Whoops, not like that. Okay, let's need something a little bit bigger around. Maybe this screwdriver would work. I just kind of want to hold it up a little bit. There we go. There we go. That's supported real well right there. Now I'm going to go around the top part of the nut and just kind of put some around the flange and tie it to the pieces that the material I've already got down in there. That'll just kind of lock it down. Well, I think we got it around there pretty good. It's not my best work, but not my worst either. This will be all cured up tomorrow. And I'll be able to put the plug in it and put it all back together. Now once that's cured, I'll be able to put this little plug back in that hole and we'll have it all plugged up. It'll be sealed with JB Weld. Now, some of you might be thinking, you're putting a lot of trust in that JB Weld. You bet I am. I've got a radiator that's almost 2 years old now on my Jeep that had somebody had tried patching a pinhole with some silicone. I cleaned up the flat surface, scraped it with some like 80 grit sandpaper, put a nice layer of JB Weld on it, and it's been holding for 2 years, and that's under pressure. This is only holding some vibration and some, should be vacuum actually in this area, so it should be good. It should hold just fine. And we'll give it some 24 hours to cure. See if I can read my instructions that I covered up. I think it cures. Sets in 4 to 6 hours to a dark gray color. Full cure is reached in 15 to 24 hours. It has up to 5,020 psi and can withstand temperatures up to 550 degrees when fully cured. That should work. No doubt that should work. Can't believe I had to go buy some JB Weld. I normally have 2 tubes of this in my toolbox. I can't believe I didn't have that. But we'll get back. We'll put this in. We'll put it back together. And then I've got another secret that's supposed to be showing up. Geez, today's only Monday. Supposed to be some parts I got showing up Thursday so I can wrap this video up and put this back together and go on to the next project on this, which will be tackling the TPMS, tire pressure monitoring system, and getting all the tires working like they should again. So all of them are sending the right, or actually sending a signal. All the batteries and all the wheels are dead. All right, folks, we're back out here the next night. The screwdriver looks like it did its job, held the drill bit in place, and that seems to be a little tight. Oh yeah, wiggle it. Boom. Nice job. Now this is 24 hours later. This is rock solid. That has sealed around there really, really well, it looks like. Now we got our little O-ring and bolt. Let's see if we can get it started in here. The whole idea of me tilting that up at an angle so that this thread wouldn't interfere with anything. Not easy to get started with everything in my way here. As you can see, it's right here now. Perfect. I'm going to get a wrench and see if I can give that just a little bit of a snug. There, we got that O-ring compressed. That should seal her up good. And the O-ring will act like a lock ring with some tension on it, so any vibration or anything should keep it from trying to back out on me. Expertly cobbled for sure, but with good intention and I think the right amount of, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't have words for it. Take the light back out of here. I think that's going to seal up. I know that's sealed because I know what I had around there for putty. Now, the last thing I'm waiting on it, and I'm waiting, this is Tuesday. Seems like Thursday's taking forever to get here, but I'm okay. I don't need time to pass any faster than it already does. So, if 2 days seems like forever, is that a blessing? I think so. So, I wanted to show you guys this. And you see the milky stuff on it? I'm leaving it on there. And that's on purpose. Oh, it won't make any difference. Okay, let's look in here. Because I'm going to be replacing this. That's what I'm waiting on, is one of these that's vented. That will let things breathe. So instead, we'll see. See that milkiness around the top there? I'm leaving that there on purpose. Anyway, I'm leaving that there on purpose. That way, my goal is when I put the new cap on and it has all this breathability, and then I've got the hole now punched through here for the PCV simulated valve situation, that when I drive this for another 200 or 300 miles, we got to get that oil down to 95% oil life, and I'm going to change it again just to make sure everything's clean and the way it should be. I'm grabbing some of my tools and putting them away while we're talking here. But that way I can see if it actually is going to cook and evaporate the moisture out of the crankcase, because now it'll be ventilating really, really well. And we'll go from there. So that's the next step, is to get that done. I also I want to pull this tube off here as well. See that water that came out of there? Water just came out of there. Are you kidding me with this? I almost put that right in my face. That would have been bad. Oh my God. Did you guys see that? That almost acted like that was plugged a little bit. The way that came out of there, that was a big chunk of something. Huh. That was a lot of stuff that came out of there. Went all over my banner. Whoa! I went all over this banner. You guys can't see me over here, but when I blew that out, see this, I'll show you. I just wiped off some of it. But look at this over here. See all these specks all over this thing? That was a lot, and it was all up in here. But look how heavy that is as far as oily water. I hope you can see that. All those specks. That was a lot of moisture and oil trapped in there. Holy smokes. I would have never guessed. I thought when it ran out there wouldn't be much in there, but it went like it was plugged a little bit. Well, that's no good. Golly. It literally put this everywhere. If you follow my other channel, which most of you do, oh man, we gotta get some. They put a stain on the white. You want a big sponsor of the channel in 2023 was SCI Marine Products. I got a few things I'm going to ask for this year from them to keep projects moving forward on that channel. I need to, where is my simple green? Yep, there it is. And that's why I can't have nice things. I'm guessing these banners aren't cheap. And I don't want to ruin it. It's a nice banner. I wish I had One of these days, maybe eventually, I'll have a shop so big and have so much wall space that I'll have room just to hang this stuff up and not interfere with my shelving space. But you know, we always work for someday, and someday it'll get here. Hard work and perseverance. All right, we'll just stick this back in here for now. We're ready to put that other stuff back on, replug in a wiring harness that we tucked away here. It's a satisfying snap when that plugs in. It really is. Put my freshly cleaned parts from the other day back on. Somebody made a comment, we're just about done here. Somebody made a comment about they put all these plastics on these engines to intimidate people, to make it look more complicated than it is. And that could be true for some. But me, when it comes to engines and fixing things and doing things, I can get intimidated. And it's only because it's things I haven't done before. But then I get over that pretty quick because I just start doing things. Especially when you do some research and you watch what happens. And you can do it yourself pretty easy. Well, when I get the vented cap, I'll show you the vented cap. We'll put that on. Let's see. I'm not sure. Before I finish this video, I actually want to get a couple 100 miles on this thing just so I can show you if that's working or not. If my venting through there, open up that PCV vent worked, and we'll go from there. I mean, the thing runs strong. The biggest thing is to make sure this thing breathes so I don't blow out a rear main, and create a whole lot more work for myself. But the fact that it hadn't, in the condition it was in, it hadn't done any of that. But we'll start this thing back up. I'm going to start it back up now because I think we started this off. Days go by and I'm trying to remember where I'm at on certain things, right? I'm really, really curious now if this has less vibrating pressure going on. Because like I said, on my Impala, there's nothing coming out of there. Zero. I'll start off like I did before. I'll take a piece of towel like this and put over it and see if it just seems like less. I'm hoping it is. Fire in the hole. I can't honestly say one way or the other. I'll be honest with you, that feels very similar. But one thing I do know for a fact is that hole is now open, which is good. I think with these engines you have a certain amount of that. I'd like to find a couple of other ones like this and see if they all feel the same. But I saw somebody else do the exact same thing, and then they never really said, was it better afterwards? They said, oh, it feels like there's less. I can't tell if it's actually like half or anything like that. But one thing I do know is that if that orifice isn't plugged, that's good. It's probably doing what it's supposed to be doing. When I put the vented oil cap on here, that's definitely going to let the pressure and let everything breathe a little better. So won't build up the crankcase pressure and won't blow out my bottom end. But it made it 133,000 miles with none of that really being attended to. So I'm thinking I'm okay for now. The other thing they say watch out for is that this is supposed to help the crankcase breathe as well. And if ice can get built up in here, now this is going downhill toward that, so any moisture would drain back in. And this is going uphill and back downhill, so it's going back into here. And that should help things. Unless this was to fill up with liquid. So one thing I will do for sure, because when I pull that out, there seems to be a lot of moisture in there since I've got it here and started playing with it. So I'm going to keep an eye on that as well. Like I said, another 200 to 300 miles on this thing. With it running as I want it to, I'll feel more comfortable about, keeping it or sending it down the road. What do you guys think I'm going to do? I've kind of got my mind made up. But the bad part is when I drive it, it's like, ooh, this is such a nice riding vehicle. Now, my Impala is a nice riding vehicle. My wife's 06 Lexus is a nice riding vehicle. But this one has some size and some, I don't know, and it sits up a little higher than my car does, and it's pretty comfortable. I'm probably going to send it down the road, but here again, I got another week or two before that happens because I got to put some miles on it and just make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to do. So I feel really comfortable selling it to somebody and knowing that I've done everything I can to make it a decent vehicle. All right, we'll be back when it's time to put the valve cap on. And I won't even waste your time with me putting it on. I'll show you what it looks like. Then we'll drive it. All right, we'll be back after that. Hi there, folks. Welcome back. We last left off doing that little cheat on the PCV. Yes, it's cold out. I'm dressed extremely warm enough not to die. Let's call it that. It's currently -2 outside. I started this thing up, made a little trip to the store to get me another mason jar. Why? Because we're getting ready to change the oil. We are currently down to 95% on the oil change. This is the same level it was at when I got the car. It was at 95%. And Midas claimed they had changed the oil. They had charged this gentleman for changing the oil, and the oil was black as coal. So this little test is to prove yes or no, did the oil get changed? We've got another jar. We're going to catch this oil in. As we remember, as we try to give you a memory here or help you remember, this is how dark the oil was when it was pulled out of there at 95% oil life left on the oil. I got this jar to catch me some more as I drain it. I told myself because this was so dark, I wanted to, it's not cheap, it's costing me $30 or so, more, actually closer to $35 to change the oil. And I have about 300, we'll look at it in a little bit, 300 and some miles later after oil change, and we'll see what it looks like at 95% with 300 miles. Supposedly this was at 95% with only about 30 miles. The tires were brand new, and then this problem occurred that we had with this vehicle, which is now fixed. So let's change the oil. Let's take a look under the hood and see if some of the stuff we've done is working like we expect it to work. We'll go ahead and pop the hood here. And one thing is for darn sure, when it's minus outside, below zero, now keep in mind, 32 degrees is freezing Fahrenheit, 0 degrees is freezing in Celsius. We are 2 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. So it's chilly. It's very chilly. I want to take a look inside here real quick. Nice. There's some moisture under this cap still, but it's not milky. It's just water, because I just started this up, ran it to the store. Condensation is just, in this kind of weather, is kind of tough, but I think we're in pretty good shape now. All right, since we did that PCV valve thing, trick, I call it, I think we're doing a lot better under here. Things just look a little more promising for darn sure. Let's get underneath here and get this oil drained while it's still warm. What millimeter do I need? 15? 14? I just hit my shin on that tire changing station. It didn't move at all. The anchors are working really good. And my shin would second that. Oh my goodness. All right, we're back under here. My hands are about to get nasty here. Well, pretty dark. Darker than I would have expected it to be for sure. So maybe they did do an oil change, but it was only 30 miles. We'll compare the jars here in a minute. Now, for those of you that didn't catch the oil change and doing this the first time, it's because I didn't do it. I changed it, but I didn't show it. Right down there, just above that yellow ring there, is a little hex. I should say little, it's a 32 millimeter hex. And that 32 millimeter hex, you can go to Walmart. Yes, I went to Walmart, and they sell these, not the ratchet, but these 32 millimeter hyper tough sockets. They're shallow socket. Compared to a regular socket, they're half as tall. And the nice thing about it is it will get down in here and fit. I can't get enough light down here. Everything's so dark. Yeah, I can barely. But you can get this socket, and I've got a little regular 3/8 drive ratchet. It's not very long, but it'll go right down in here. Let's see if I can get you down in here, see what's going on. You're not going to have a lot of movement. Now, ideally, a swivel head ratchet. I've got one of those ordered actually for future. Let's see here if I can get you guys in here with me, but I can get about 1/8 of a turn with my ratchet. So I'm going to set you guys down. You can see them. And it's going to come out kind of snug because there's a O-ring around it that's kind of holding things. An angle ratchet, you can probably get another 1/8, so you can get a whole about almost a quarter turn per effort here. I'm not hating the design. A cartridge filter versus a screw-on. Screw-ons are nice though, I can't deny that. There, now we're loose. Now we can probably get it by hand. Yep, give me some rags here. A rag maybe? Oh, I like to have more than that. See, now that oil filter is dark, but it's not black. The one I pulled out of there after supposedly 95, when it was down to 95%, was black as coal. Now these get little wrinkles in them, I believe, because when you clamp them down and they crush them, you're going to get a little wrinkle because you got to tighten this down to this O-ring seals. So I would say this one is a lot better than the other one, but still, we'll take a look at the oil here in just a minute. And this is, and this is the color change after only, I think I've got 320 miles. We'll confirm that here in a minute. We'll go and reset everything. So, not awesome. I don't know how much of that was due to the thing not being changed when it said it was, or there was still a lot of dirty oil in there that I'm flushed out with this quick oil change, and maybe it's going to be cleaner in the future. There's a couple of scenarios, but one scenario I'm pretty positive of is that other oil did not have just 30 miles on it. That I think we can confirm. We'll stick this back down in there. Just need the wrench for the last few turns, because that O-ring is engaging and giving you some resistance and keeping you sealed up. All right, she's tight. Now, I did put an AC Delco. I normally like to put wicks, but I found this AC Delco PF457G. That's what I put in there. Let's get the oil in it. It was so cold this morning. This O-ring and everything was so stiff, I could barely get this out of there to look at it. But man, there is no more. Let me show you real quick. All the white milky residue that was down in there is now gone. I didn't clean it out. You guys saw it before. And like I said, I've only put maybe, since I did this little PCV thing, I did about 100. We'll look here in a minute. We'll get some numbers here together. Just be patient. I got my clean funnel, so I'm real happy about that. That means the stuff we did with the PCV is working as it should. Now I'm putting back in here some Lavalier 5W30 premium full synthetic. It's got, you got to have this Dexos. You don't want to mess that up and not put that in on these cars. The old oil cap said Dexos. The new one I got here is a breathable one. Does not say Dexos on it. So follow the owner's manual recommendation always. Cool part about this one, it takes 5 quarts. Now my old Impala that has 182,000 miles on it now uses about a half a quart every 2,500 miles, which is pretty much 2,500 to 3,000. Basically, it uses a quart total between oil changes, which ain't bad between 5,000 and 6,000 miles. I'll take that all day long. The other nice thing about that is my Impala takes 4.5 quarts. So I hang on to that half quart. When I get down to 50% oil life, I check the dipstick. Sure enough, put the other half in. We're good to the oil change. But check your oil often. And on these vehicles, check your oil very often. At least every 2 to 3 gas fill-ups until you're familiar with your oil consumption. If you've just got a hold of a new vehicle, a new used vehicle, check it every couple of fill-ups and get to know your oil consumption. Now, oil consumption is not an awful thing. It's not ideal, but when you got 100,000+ miles on it and you consume a little oil, don't fret it. I can add half a quart of oil every 2,000 to 3,000 miles for a long time. And I say that because it's cheaper than a car payment, especially with what cars cost today. This is what I was talking about. This one has the 5W30 Dexos, whereas this one just has 5W30, doesn't have the Dexos, but it does have this little vent right here that will prevent crankcase pressure from building up too high and blowing out your rear main. And that only should happen or would happen if you if your PCV orifice hole in this thing got plugged, which we got this so we can check it periodically. Honestly, I'd probably check it every oil change, maybe, or maybe every 20,000 miles, something like that. So, okay, we're going to call this vehicle done and awesomely done and running like a champ. Let's go inside and look at some of you might be asking, well, aren't you going to check your oil? Sure. I mean, it's not running. Oh, this is something else I want to make a mention. when you get your oil changed by somebody, and there again, there are so many reputable service people out there, hardworking people. I'm not trying to take anything away from those guys at all. Those are hardworking folks out there. Some of the conclusions I draw may not be 100% accurate, but I feel that they are. There again, we'll look at the oil here in a minute. But when you get your oil changed, don't be afraid. Find your dipstick on your car that says oil on it or may not say oil. And after you get it changed, go ahead, put that in. You know, it's already going to be in there. Pull it out. And I'll show you here right now. I've got this all cleaned off, nice and pretty. As soon as you get it home, do this. Shut your car off, let it sit for a little while, and then check your oil and oil level by inserting the dipstick all the way, pull it out, and make sure you can see the oil line. And I'm not going to be able to catch it on camera. Make sure you can see the oil line on here, and then take yourself a clean cloth and do like that. And it might be that color, but it should by no means be jet black, because that's going to be the color of oil basically, and you're not going to have enough miles on it yet to have discolored it. If it's jet black, if it's black as the underside of this car here is under the hood, there's a good chance they may not have changed your oil. They may have just reset your meter. So anyway, that's a cautionary tale for you folks out there, just to make sure you don't get taken advantage of. Let's go under here. Let's close the hood. Satisfying click. The less times I get to open that, the better. This is the last time this is hopefully going to be in my shop, just for the simple fact I've got it up for sale now that I've got everything done on it that I've done. Let's take a look at the dash, and I'll show you a couple things. So we're key on, and we're going to go to remaining oil life is 95%. That's where I changed it. And that was at, there we go. Where's my trip? Oh, wrong menu. I had 320 miles on this car since I changed the oil. 320.6 miles. And that got us down to the 95%. Let me shut the door so this dinging thing won't drive us all batty. There we go. Oil life 95%. And this is what I did when I changed the oil. Are you sure you want to reset? Arrow up. Yes, I do. 100%. Like I said, when I got the car, this was at 95%. Supposedly the oil was changed. Supposedly the tires only had 30 miles. Supposedly the tires and the oil was changed at the same time. Just saying. Draw your own conclusions. But definitely there was a misstep somewhere. And let's take another quick look at this oil. Let's get it over here on my bench. I actually went out and bought 6 of these pint jars just so I could do this. So here's the one jar. Here's the other jar. They're both clear glass. I mean, you can't shine a light through either one of these. And I'll go get my light and I'll show you. Now this is a very bright LED, and like I said, I'll hold it up to the back here. I can't see anything through there. Let's hold it up to this one. The oil was changed on at 320 some miles. Can't see through that one either. So the only evidence I have was the oil life monitoring system was set to 95. Supposedly it only went 30 miles. The oil filter on my oil filter that I put in there was, as you saw, not really black. It was dark, but it wasn't black. After over 300 miles to get to 95%. The other one was at 95%, and it was jet black. The oil, you know, without sending it again for testing, I'm surprised how dark that was after 320 miles. Most of my cars, after 500 to 1,000 miles, the oil is just barely starting to change color from its original color. My Lexus, I'll go almost 2,500 miles and that oil will still be pretty transparent on the dipstick. And but that's also a, you know, it's touted to be a 300,000 mile motor. I'm not so sure these 2.4 liters are 300,000 mile motors, but when everything's maintained, you stand a better chance. If you go and take your oil changes out further than you should because I haven't had time and I put another 1,000 miles on the oil, it might cost you down the road. It might cost you down the road. It might shave, let's just call it tens of thousands of miles off the engine life by doing that. There's something else I was going to bring up. What was it? Another thing about these engines that I thought was very interesting, I saw it on a few people had left it on YouTube, and it's the fact that they used a less tension ring. So these rings that are in your pistons, they're split. They're a circle and they got a split in them. And you collapse them down. They don't touch. You collapse them down to put them in the cylinder, and there's a certain tolerance of gap you're supposed to keep in there or supposed to have when you're assembling these engines, right? Well, my understanding that, so depending on how much you have to collapse them, how much tension they have against the cylinder wall. And the more tension against the cylinder wall, the less blow-by you will have and the less crankcase pressure you should end up with as a result, because you don't have the blow-by going past the rings. My understanding is, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, and I encourage all my subscribers, read the comments. There's a lot of knowledgeable things being put down in the comments, and you folks that have the knowledge, please put comments down there, because let's, as a community, let's help each other make things better and help each other, you know, spend less money on things that are, let's just call them clearly overpriced. I mean, everything's just, I shouldn't say overpriced. Everything has gone up in price, so it's even more important now than ever to make your dollar go further. And this is one way to do it. Now, me changing this oil, if this was my car, I would have changed the oil after 300 miles like I just did. Not just for this experiment, but just because if I'm keeping the car, that's what I would do. I just did it for whoever's buying the car because I couldn't in good conscience send it down the road without crossing a few T's and dotting a few I's here, which is I feel that I've done. But those low tension rings are supposed to help with the economy as far as the car having less drag in the engine. But it can cause it to burn a little bit more oil. It can cause a little more blow-by. It can cause your crankcase oil to get dirtier quicker. So by golly, please follow the owner's manual for recommended oil changes. Now, I've always taken I used to use the oil life management system. Let me tell you a little story. You might like this, you might not. I had an 01 Monte Carlo with the 3.5 liter V6 in it. Really nice riding car, really nice handling car. When I put some really good Michelins on it, man, that thing would hang a corner. It would pull some G's. It was really fun. But I had an oil life management system. Now, I was commuting 100 miles round trip every day to work. And I was changing the oil every 6 weeks because I was going about every 3 miles or 3,000 miles. I was changing the oil because I was, let's just say, on the oil change system, I was kicking it old school. A lot of you fellers that watch my channel are my age and older, and you know who you are, and you know what we did. We changed the oil every 3,000 miles. We didn't give a crap. We're changing it every 3,000. I don't care how newfangled these things are. Well, just for fun. There again, 3,000 miles, keep in mind. Just for fun, I ran full synthetic oil in all my vehicles, pretty much always. The only thing I don't run full synthetic in is in my old boat motors, the old inboard outboards. They need the dinosaur bones and the minerals and spirits that are in there to keep those flat tappets lifters lubricated. I change the oil every 3,000 miles. Now, the car doesn't know when you change the oil unless you tell it you change the oil. It's tracking, computer-wise, it's tracking, because you got temperature gauges on your car. It's tracking engine temperature, outside temperature, how much idling and driving RPMs. It's kind of calculating all that stuff in there and baking that into your how often you should change your oil. So your oil life management goes from 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 91, and so on, down to 0. I will run mine down to 0, and then I'll change my oil. I used to run it down to 10%. I'm like, oh, it's getting too close. It's fine. Run it down to 0. That's me. You guys let me know what you do typically for your oil changes. So I did that. I went 9,600 miles. Now, keep in mind, I kept changing my oil every 3,000 because, there again, this was an experiment. And I didn't want to experiment by losing my engine. It went 9,600 miles before the oil life management system came on and says, because it didn't have a percentage, it says change oil. I'm like, wow, for real? 90, but there again, all highway. I'd started up. I was 2 miles from the highway. I get to the highway, 50 miles to work, all highway. Same thing coming home. And so highway driving is some of the easiest driving on vehicles that you can do. So at that point, I started changing my oil because there again, it doesn't know because the car says it just needs to have oil that meets these certain specifications, right? So you could run conventional oil in it at that time. It didn't even recommend it. It didn't say you had to run full synthetic. So you could run the cheapest oil you want. Now the engineering behind it says that you could go this distance, you know. So I started thinking, well, heck, I run full synthetic oil in all my cars. So I started going 10,000 miles between oil changes because I ran full synthetic, or when the oil life management system light went off, which was pretty close to 10,000 miles. And another example, I had a 93 Lumina. Now, back in the 90s, Ford and Chevys had their quality plan together, and things were built a little better, honestly, than they are today. So I had a 93 Lumina that had 165,000 miles on it with a 3.1 liter V6. Love that old 3.1 liter V6. It might have had some intake one that had plastic intake manifolds had some intake manifold issues. The one that had aluminum intake manifolds did not necessarily have the issues. Some of them did. The gasket wasn't designed for the coolant they were putting in there, and it would eat through the coolant. And you could easily hydrolock your motor, but you always, you catch it before then. You smell it before it gets to that level. If you start smelling coolant on your engine, find it, fix it. But anyway, so I had that car, and I drove it for at least 2 years at, let's just call it, doing the same commute, because that's 500 miles a week, just during the week. So 5 times 52, 5 times 5 is 25,000 miles a year. I drove that for 2 years, put 50,000 miles on it. I changed the oil on that car 5 times in 50,000 miles because I was going 10,000 miles between oil changes. And the crazy part about that particular engine, from like 165 to 200 some thousand miles, 0 oil consumption between oil changes. It was just an absolute crazy situation. So whoever had it before me, I bought it when it had a bad transmission. And whoever had it before me must have done some good stuff with the oil changes and stuff, because there again, and I sold it. And until the guy wrecked it that I sold it to, it was running strong and still doing everything. Coldest AC on the planet. I'd be driving on a spring day, 75 degrees outside, and I'd be driving to work, and I was breathing, and the next thing I'm like, what's that? And I'm like, I could get fog to come out of my mouth inside my car because the air conditioner works so well. I like the cold AC. Alrighty, well, that's enough about me chit-chatting about this oil change stuff. You guys draw your own conclusions. Me personally, my opinion is that they did not change that oil because at 30 miles, that oil should have been a lot cleaner, and that oil filter should have been a lot less dark, like this one was with over 300 miles on it. So I don't think they did anything to hurt the engine, because I think that was just the only oil change that was not done. But whoever's going to end it with this car, and by the time you see this video, it will actually be 7 days from when I'm shooting it right now. I'll edit it, and it'll be going up a week from this Sunday, which is Sunday's tomorrow. And chances are it will no longer be available for sale. It will most likely be sold and gone. I put it on the marketplace yesterday, and I've already had 5 inquiries about it, and one of them's fairly serious, so we'll see how it goes. Let's see if I can get this thing back up the snowy hill and get on to my next project. And I think the next project's going to hit home with a lot of people, just for the simple fact it's now officially 24 years old. It's a 2000 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, and it's a South Carolina car, rust-free, Was rust-free when I got it. I parked it under my deck or under cover all winter. I didn't drive it in the winter, even though it's a 4x4, because I didn't want, see this all over this car right here? That white? Yeah, you don't get that down in the warm states because they don't put calcium chloride and salt and everything else on the roads that cause this. And this will, if you don't wash it off often enough, it will cause your car to rust. And usually it attacks the frame. Then you start seeing them bubbling through the fenders. And cars don't rust as bad as they used to back in the 80s and 90s. But so they've done something different. I'm not sure what. Maybe it's the chemicals different. Because we pay a lot of money for these cars just for them to be ate out and look like hollow shells after 10 years. We really want our cars to last longer than 10 years. And this one's a 2015. It's 9 years old. It's got a lot of life left in it, in my opinion. This is Michael saying, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. We'll see you on the next video. I'm out. Be nice to one another and treat each other fairly. See ya. If I'm lucky, I get to see you. And I hope you guys feel lucky that you get to see me. Bye.